Technique Tuesday. If you want to get strong, if you want to lift big, you want to lift heavy, you got to focus on technique. Technique is important. When you're first getting started in resistance training, I recommend that you learn how to connect with your muscles. Isolation exercises work really well for this. Things like bicep curls, leg extensions, bridges, crunches. All of these are like exercises that work like one muscle group at a time, and they work really well to help you to connect with your muscles, identify them, like this is what it feels like to stretch and fatigue my quadriceps. And as you get more and more familiar with your muscles, you also want to work on learning how to move, and there's a couple of basic fundamental movements that are, I think, essential to learn as part of resistance training, but also as part of like keeping your body healthy. So squats is one of those movements. Squatting is a movement that we do every day. Every time you get off and on the toilet, you're squatting. Every time you sit down and stand up, you're squatting, right? And we develop weird movement patterns as we age that can put our bodies at risk of injury, or it can cause chronic pain. And so it's important to be mindful of how we move and learn how to move in the most like efficient way, and in a way that uses the mechanics of our bodies properly. So that's why resistance training and learning how to squat can be so helpful. Same thing with deadlifts. Deadlifts are something that we do every single day as well. Anytime you go to reach down and pick something up off the floor, like that's a deadlift. That's what the deadlift is it's a picking up off the floor exercise, and it mimics that. So a lot of times, the older that people get, as they develop goofy movement patterns, or they develop like muscle imbalances or tightness in their hips, tightness in their backs, the older that you get, the more you'll hear people around you throwing their backs out. And a lot of times people throw their backs out when they bend down to pick something up. That's like a really common injury. So learning how to do that safely in a way that actually uses your big muscles in your legs, rather than like lifting through your back and your arms, can help save you from a major back injury, or throwing your back out, ending up with a strain that makes it difficult or painful to move for weeks or months. You know what I mean? So that's why I am such a big fan of resistance training, and why I push it so much, and why I think everybody should be doing it. So that's why I wanted to start the Technique Tuesdays segment, because one, I think it's really important for us to set aside time to talk about technique. And I have a bunch of different exercises. I mean, there's so many exercises, right? So we're just gonna talk about, I'm gonna pick 2 or 3 that we'll talk about every week. I'm gonna give a rundown of like how I teach it to clients. And then another part of this is that we're gonna look at the lifts or calisthenic exercise videos that you guys post in the Discord of yourselves doing an exercise. And I'll give some feedback the way that I would my clients. Take a look at your technique and give you some tips on things to think about that might help you to feel better in the movement. Or we'll just take a look at some really good examples of people doing an exercise and just remark on the different ways that those exercises can be done. Many of these exercises can be done in many different ways. Like there are general principles that we can follow to use our body's mechanics most efficiently and effectively. But within those general principles, there's a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of freedom of personal expression, right? Our bodies are somewhat different, generally pretty similar, but there's differences in bone structure, differences in leg size, arm size, hip sockets, all of that, that make the way that we have to perform these different movements slightly different. So what I want to do is kind of take this opportunity to look at, your lifts and help you to find the way to do them that works best for your body. So that's why we're doing their Technique Tuesdays.